And then it's like, it just takes you a moment to process it. You're like, oh, I can't believe that's what I'm watching right now. I got all excited for, a fight, a brawl.
Yeah.
And it's just clearly not that.
And I don't know the ins and outs of boxing, but is this Logan Paul, is he a legitimate boxer?
A legitimate boxer, yes. People mocked me when I was saying that before, but now I think people are coming around.
What if it's not as deep as that for some people? What if some people just think it was not that entertaining of a fight?
So last week, the boxing and the YouTube world witnessed a matchup that sounded very exciting on paper, but let's be real, it turned out to be a massive letdown. But what I thought was really interesting were the similarities between what the boxing world is going through at the moment and what's happening to stand-up comedy or the comedy world, because we just uploaded a video going over Anthony Jeselnik, calling out the entire Rogansphere and Joe Rogan himself, and mentioning how there's a difference between a podcaster and a comedian, which we have also mentioned in the past, and I do agree with that. And funny enough, that video got a lot of comments, with most defending Joe Rogan as a comedian, which I thought was very interesting. And so in this video, we'll go through how the Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson fight on Netflix was the equivalent of a Joe Rogan comedy special. Because again, technically on paper, Joe Rogan is one of the biggest, if not the biggest comedian at the moment. But the special was absolute trash, basically proving that just because someone or something is massively successful or getting a ton of views doesn't necessarily mean it's the real thing or that it's a good product. So let's get started.
So hold on. So the room is electric. These women
electric in
fight. Everybody's pumped, and we're all waiting for Tyson to come out, right? And the other guy, Paul Ryan comes out, and we're just like, boo, that guy.
Everybody booed. It was insane. It was like a fucking stadium booing and then a stadium cheering. It was insane. Here's the thing. I mean, obviously a lot of people watch this live, so I'm not telling you anything you don't know. But we're, at this point, they move us. We're in the fourth row, and we have great, like, just right there. And like that first round, you're like, okay, it's first round, kind of jitters, feeling each other out. Like, okay. Then you get into like the second and third round, and you clearly see something. Two things really that stand out to me. A, Tyson's footwork is just, it's odd and it's off, right? But the other thing that's real clear is that he doesn't press once.
Yeah.
And every time you're seeing a window for it, he's actually retreating, clearly. To be fair to Jake, he also is doing the same thing.
Yeah.
He's setting up something with a jab and then retreating. And then you're like, what we're watching is a friendly spar. We're watching like sparring, light sparring. We're not watching a fight. And then it's like, it just takes you a moment to process it. You're like, oh, I can't believe that's what I'm watching right now. I got all excited for, a fight, a brawl.
Yeah.
And it's just clearly not that. And so, yeah, there was just this real cloud of disappointment in the, I mean, the crowd started to boo pretty loud by the 6th, 7th, and 8th round. We were like,
I was upset. I wanted my hero to win.
Yeah, everybody was just like, what the f is this? I mean, it just felt like there was clearly an arrangement.
And look, to be fair, no one knew what would happen since it is a fight, so technically anything was possible, even though from the start the whole matchup was just weird. It didn't make any sense that a young Jake Paul would fight an older Mike Tyson unless it was clearly an exhibition and for the money, which, that's not what this was sold as. And so when it comes to Tom Segura, it is interesting listening to what he has to say, because unlike everybody else, I don't think he has a close relationship with Jake Paul or Mike Tyson, and so it comes across as being a little bit more honest. And I do agree with everything that he said, because I was watching it live, and I also noticed that after the 5th round, it was clearly over. Mike Tyson was tired, he was done, and he was just trying to survive and put on a show. But then towards the end, it was clear that both of them were holding back, more specifically Jake Paul. And so it wasn't a real fight or a tough challenge for either of them, clearly. And instead, it was more of a glorified sparring match. And also, I wonder if Joe Rogan will give an honest take next time that he brings up that event, because you could argue that he was a big part of why that fight was so successful. I mean, he was talking about it many, many times, promoting it. Even right before the fight, he was talking about it. And it would be interesting to see if he still believes that Jake Paul can put on real fights, because the whole time everyone was either predicting that Jake Paul would KO Mike Tyson or that it would be the other way around, but no one really talked about the possibility of this whole thing being a massive fake out. And so with that being said, I think it is important to point out that even though Joe Rogan has a ton of experience when it comes to fighting and comedy, he's not the best at picking out the real talent versus the hacks, unless he is, and he decides to ignore that to help out whoever he likes at the moment.
One reason or another, you don't like his attitude. Like if I brought up Jake Paul, pretty much everybody in the room and the other room wants to see Jake Paul get knocked out. So you're hoping, you got the reason why you hope Tyson would pull this off. Or
did you help set that up? Because I know you're close with Tyson.
God no. When this fight happens, Tyson will be 58 years.
I'm worried about him.
Under any circumstances, a almost 60-year-old man shouldn't be fighting a 27-year-old guy under any circumstances, even if it's Mike Tyson. So it's just ridiculous.
Now, do you think he can pull it off?
Take nothing away from them.
No, I mean, people want to take something away from them because they're YouTube people. I always tell people, just forget that Jake Paul is a YouTube guy and watch him box.
Yeah.
The kid can fight 100%. And that Tommy Fury fight really showed that. I mean, it goes to a split decision against a legit undefeated boxer.
Yeah. He doesn't, I'll tell you what, the one thing he doesn't want to do is fight Mike.
No.
Yeah, he wants to fight Mike, I think.
Why?
I don't know.
I don't give a he's 55. That's still Mike Tyson.
Mike's in good shape, too.
Oh, my God.
Mike trains every day.
He trains with Rafael Cordero, who's a legend in MMA. He runs King's Mixed Martial Arts.
And I don't know the ins and outs of boxing, but is this Logan Paul, is he a legitimate boxer?
A legitimate boxer, yes. People mocked me when I was saying that before, but now I think people are coming around.
And once again, when it comes to stand-up comedy, it's kind of going through what boxing is going through at the moment with, big social media stars and big YouTubers overshadowing the real thing. And even though I don't think it's that bad, I do think both can coexist. And also, competition is always good, in my opinion. But when it comes to the Mike Tyson and Jake Paul fights, that is the risk of what could happen when putting on those type of events, in which the goal is not to put on a great performance or a great fight, in my opinion, and instead is, it's just to try and get the most amount of views as possible, because it's clearly just a one-time thing, because nobody will rewatch Jake Paul fighting an older person ever again. For example, the reason why we compare this to Joe Rogan's comedy special on Netflix is because they both feel like an attempt by both to try and make the most amount of money as possible with the least amount of work. For example, when it comes to Jake, he fought Mike Tyson, an older Mike Tyson, and as we saw, they weren't going all out, so it wasn't even a tough challenge. And when it comes to Joe Rogan, he pretty much skipped the whole process of making a comedy special. He didn't tour the country with the material. He didn't record multiple shows and then have to sit through the painful edits of the jokes, which is arguably a very crucial part of the process.
So how long have you been steady doing stand-up again now?
I think like 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
It must feel good though, right?
It's nice
to get back into like a real flow, like a real headliner flow again.
100%. Yes.
And go, oh yeah, I missed this.
I did miss it. I didn't even know I missed it.
It's the most fun.
Absolutely. You were loose. You set yourself up to do a live special. I don't think I could handle that, man. My head be spinning way too much, man. But
I had to over prepare.
But you didn't have. You didn't have any pauses. You just boom, 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 boom. How long were you doing that set?
I did. Well, because I have my own club that helps a lot, right? So I was doing 2 shows a night, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So I was doing 6 hours of stand-up a week, which is a lot.
Yeah.
And then I was doing podcasts and all the other UFC stuff that I do. It's a lot of work.
Right.
That got to be too much. So then I knocked it down to 3 sets a week. 3 headliner sets a week, and then I would do a bunch of short sets.
And by the way, back then we did review Joe Rogan's comedy special as soon as it came out, and we mentioned how bad it was, especially when you think about the fact that it is Joe Rogan, one of the biggest comedians. He had been sitting on that material for over 5 years, and again, it was a live Netflix comedy special, so a pretty big deal. But his whole set, the whole thing was just very basic. I don't really remember any of the jokes besides the ones he reused and we talked about on that video. And funny enough, another similarity between the Jake Paul fights and Joe Rogan's comedy special or the Rogansphere is how you could see the massive contrast between the main event, the main thing, and the people going before them. You know, when it comes to the fights, Amanda and Katie absolutely put on a crazy performance. That was a real fight. But when it comes to Joe Rogan or other Rogansphere comedians, which I've seen live, it does feel like the openers are a lot better or at the same level as the headliner, which is good in terms of the audience getting good value for their money. But it does show you that the Rogansphere comedians are not that much better than other comics. And instead, it's just that they have a large podcast audience that allows them to sell out venues. And by the way, don't forget to like the video. It helps out so much, and I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, brutal.
I think we all felt like saying, he's not a comedian, Mark.
I guess
of all people, Mark.
Well, he's not a stand-up comedian.
He's not a stand-up.
He's a comedian.
Saying, Mark. You of all people to say
I'm not saying he's a stand-up.
I think he shocked the whole room. Everybody's stunned by that.
He's a comedian, a different kind
He's hilarious.
Of comedian.
He's not a comedian.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's a comic actor.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
All the narrative.
Wait, he's not a comedian?
stand-up comedian.
Do
you think comedian means stand-up comedian?
I do.
I think so, too.
But I know what you mean. Comic.
I know.
It definitely means comedian. Comic.
Yeah. So does a comedian. Both means comedian.
Martin Short,
What do they
comedian.
say? Oh, for Christ's sakes, Tom.
That's what they say. That's
Why are you
what they
muttering
say.
the waters?
It's true.
Don't you, whenever you get interviewed and somebody goes, so do you like other comedians and they name somebody who's not a stand-up, don't you go like, well, he's not really a stand-up? And you get a little attitude. I do.
I do that too. It's harder.
But you just did it to us.
I guess you're right. well, what's that old story? Greg Kinnear tried stand-up, failed, became an actor, won an Oscar.
Oh, yeah?
Wait, what did he win an Oscar for?
As good as it gets.
Michael Keaton was a stand-up.
Michael Keaton? No, but Michael Keaton was a stand. He was on the Letterman.
Yeah.
Doing a bit. It was funny.
But he still quit.
He had a Bazooka Joe comic.
He quit because he was playing Batman.
Got to go do cooler stuff.
He gave up.
Yeah.
He gave up.
He's acting next to Jack Nicholson with like
But he
this
used to do a
pussy.
bit.
I want to do a 10:15 at the Comedy Store.
But you're supposed to need comedy. That's the whole thing. You need to do it. Like Letterman. Where's Letterman's act?
Yeah.
You fake?
Letterman was the original crowd work.
Colin, you're one of the only people that's gone the distance.
Yes, we're all begging you to quit.
Here it is, the bazooka bit.
Now, even though comedy is subjective, whenever we talk about a real comedian or a comic, we're talking about someone or a comedian who, even though they became massively successful and rich, they still didn't stop treating their stand-up comedy as being their main thing. Again, even though they have a lot of other things going on, and it is nearly impossible not to change whenever you become, again, famous and successful. But when it comes to the other comedians, it becomes very clear that their stand-up comedy was just a way to try and become famous and go viral. But I mean, technically, as long as you get paid to entertain people and make them laugh, then you are a professional comedian. And same thing with boxing, except that at the very least, when it comes to the boxing world, everyone deep down knows that Jake Paul isn't a real boxer, even though, of course, he's done very well, made a lot of money, and also helped out the boxing community. And he's knocked out real fighters and put on some good performances. But, you know, nobody's actually putting him on the same level as a real fighter like Canelo, Usyk, or Benavidez. Of course not. But when it comes to comedy, because comedy is subjective, unlike watching somebody get knocked out or punched in the face, people do think that some of the new social media or Rogansphere comedians are some of the best comics at the moment, up there with Chappelle, Louis, and Bill Burr, which is absolutely insane.
And then it all clicked. It's like, oh my God, I'm taking someone on the road who's been on The Tonight Show countless times.
Every week. He's put out, William alone has put out more comedy than in the last 5 years plus than Chappelle, Louis, Bill Burr, Segura, Bert Kreischer combined.
Yeah, man.
There's no question
and
about
he's
it.
so funny.
At about 7 or 8 minutes, and he's being funny the whole interview. We know how to do the dance.
And that is because they all live in this bubble or this Rogansphere in which they all hype each other up and talk about how great everyone is. But then when somebody puts out a bad comedy special like, Rogan's, or somebody bombs like, Tony at the rally, they don't really address it. They don't talk about it. And instead, they try to make excuses because to this day, Tony is still trying to explain what the joke was about and saying how everyone missed the joke, which is absolutely insane. I mean, at this point, just move on and take the L. I mean, what are we doing? But then when it comes to Jake Paul, it is wild that even his own brother, his own family, can't stop being negative and calling out and saying what everyone else is thinking, which, it is crazy that at this point, a young Jake Paul has way more accountability than most of the Rogansphere comedians. From what I can remember, the only stand-up comic that has been calling out the Rogansphere consistently is Anthony Jeselnik, which we covered on our last video. And there is a chance that maybe more comics will start calling out the Rogansphere and those comedians.
Well, people are just really hating right now. Like the haters are running wild.
What are you saying to the feedback on the fight that you're getting?
I'm not saying anything.
Nothing.
I don't need to say anything. The people who understand the greatness of it and, have their own lives and are happy with themselves, they're going to just show respect and show praise. It's the haters who are jealous and don't have anything going on in their sad and miserable lives, and they want to bring the whole event down and Mike down and me down and all of these things.
What if it's not as deep as that for some people? What if some people just think it was not that entertaining of a fight?
I mean, what do they want? They just want me to lose. That's the only way they would have thought it was entertaining.
I think there's a world where some people definitely wanted you to knock out Tyson.
Right.
And I know,
but of course,
people were disappointed in him as well.
This is the sport. It's like, okay, yeah, sometimes there's going to be NFL games where they score, 10 points each, and that's boring. Like, what do you want? Like, that what happened. All possibilities are there when you go into a fight. So,
but they're saying Mike tricked them.
And then if I would have knocked Mike out, then they still would have hated it and been like, Jake's an asshole. Like, they're literally just finding a reason to hate on any part of it. So it's not just as simple as like, oh, I didn't like that. And they got like sick ass undercard fights, the walkouts, the whole thing was entertaining.
Are you happy with your performance in the fight? Are you happy with the way the night went down?
I wish he would have put up a better fight, so then I could have like risen more and done more. And like he was surviving. He was. So
annoying.
That was the only thing I didn't like.
So annoying when they don't bring the fight to you.
Yeah.
But he got you with a couple punches. How did they feel?
Now, when it comes to Logan, it is crazy that even though I do agree with most of the things that he said about the fights, he's so unaware of how unlikable he is when he's essentially trying to get his own brother to do something that he himself would never do, which is take accountability for, not putting on the best products and also take some negative criticism. But also when it comes to Jake, he did say some things that didn't make any sense at all. I mean, he was talking about how he was hoping that Mike Tyson would come at him harder so he could have an excuse to beat him up, which it doesn't make any sense. I mean, if your job is to fight somebody and you're getting paid over $40 million from what I saw, I mean, there's no excuse. You don't have to knock him out. I mean, I understand. I get the whole respect thing, but at the very least, put on a good performance instead of, whatever we got last week. And look, since now it's been 2 back-to-back flops on Netflix, in my opinion, with Rogan special and now the Jake Paul fights, it's very clear at this point that Netflix is not giving out these things to the funniest or the best in their craft, and instead is to whoever has the most people watching, which is fair. I mean, I'm I'm basically describing how life works. It is what it is. But if that's the case, maybe then what Hulu is doing could become the next thing for real comedy, because a lot of comedians are releasing their specials there. And at this point, Netflix is not really, they don't really have a standard for what a good comedy special is. I mean, at this point, they're just releasing specials that comedians were going to release on their YouTube channel anyways.
Okay, Adam Ray does a character where he plays Dr. Phil. I know Adam Ray. I'd say he's a friend of mine, a friend I don't know well. We become friends in the past year or two, but I got talked into being on his Dr. Phil thing. Bill Burr had done it, and they were like, Bill Burr enjoyed it so much. That was the first time they ever did it, that Bill Burr came on again. And I was like, okay, it must be really fun. And then after I did it, I found out that Bill Burr was doing them a favor coming back. That Bill was like, all right, okay, fine. But I did not enjoy it. And not because of Adam Ray. I like Adam Ray. But I didn't really know what I was getting into. I think there's one clip they got out of it that I look furious in, even when I'm making fun of him. But I did not enjoy it, but through no fault of Adam Ray. I saw someone online ask, am I upset that Adam Ray, as Dr. Phil, talking to Dr. Phil, is going to be a Netflix special the week before Bones and All comes out, as if I would ever feel threatened by that. No. As if that would not be, there's no special that would come out around the same time as mine that I would feel like was taking away, except maybe a Chappelle or a Bill Burr or a John Mulaney, any of the big Chris Rock.
For example, in our last video, we included a clip of Anthony jokingly taking shots at Adam Ray. And I say jokingly because that is his shtick, and he did say that him and Adam were cool with each other. And a lot of people were actually defending Adam Ray, saying that he was way better than Anthony Jeselnik, which, I like Adam Ray. I think him as Dr. Phil is funny, and he killed it as Joe Biden. But in my opinion, you can't really compare the two at all. And now that both of their specials are out on Netflix, I wonder if people still feel the same way. But yeah, once again, it is interesting what's happening to stand-up comedy at the moment. We're on Netflix. You could have an Anthony Jeselnik comedy special and an Adam Ray as Dr. Phil comedy special, which I like both, but in my opinion, one of them is way better comedy. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments below. Leave a like and subscribe to support the channel. Dislike if you didn't like the video. But that is all we have for today. See ya.